morning, it's February 7th, and this is To My Liberal Friends. I'm not sure how many of you have owned a business, but I have, and I had to make sure we had enough income to pay the employees and the bills. Now, our firm, and I had a partner, was an S-Corp, and that meant that at the end of the year, we would have to reduce how much money we had on hand or it would be taxed as profits, even though it was not really profit. That meant in December, we would have to take the funds in the bank and prepay things like rent for 3 months, health insurance for employees for 3 months, and any other normal bill that we could get paid in advance. And that allowed us to use the income that we got in January, February, and March, those 3 months, to ensure we could meet payroll. My partner, who was a co-owner, and we normally wouldn't see a paycheck till sometime in April. And we understood this and planned our finances accordingly. By April, we were accumulating enough income to pay ourselves, and then in December, we'd start this process all over again, but that's how the business operated. And this is not a complaint, just a statement of fact. But the government does not have to operate in any manner of real fiscal restraint. They can get away with this because they have the ability to print money. If they need more, they just add it to the national debt. And that national debt now exceeds $36 trillion, and it grows each and every day. So enter Donald Trump as the 47th president. He's been a businessman for the vast majority of his life, and he's seen the ups and downs of business succeeding and failing. And that's the nature of any business, particularly a developer. If you don't earn enough money, you are on the brink of failing. You have to cut costs, and that means on many occasions you have to cut employees. And this is the mindset that he's brought to the federal government. It's a bloated organization that if we're a business, it would have been bankrupt years ago. But since the government can simply print the money, as I said, and borrow money, it just racks up debt and never goes out of business. Well, earlier this week, led by the man he's put in charge of the Department of Government Efficiency, DOGE, Elon Musk shuttered the doors of USAID. I'm sure most of you have seen the list of grants given by this agency. They have nothing to do with furthering U.S. foreign policy, but seem to be pet projects for a bunch of woke bureaucrats. And I'm not talking about chump change. They have a budget of over $42 billion. In some cases, they've overspent that budget. Yes, they do some good things, and this is what the median Democrats on the Hill, Capitol Hill, will point to. They will turn a blind eye, though, to the frivolous spending from the agency on things the majority of Americans would look at and say, why? Now, if you're wondering how USAID funds things outside of what would be an open and transparent government appropriations, you would have to look behind the curtain. USAID uses non-NGOs, non-government organizations, to move money to favored projects. So here's how it works. The government-funded NGO gets a USAID grant for something vague like, quote, strengthening education. The NGO then dumps millions into a donor-advised fund. The donor-advised fund isn't required to disclose what the NGO told them to do with the money. But somehow, every hyper-political nonprofit with a sketchy agenda gets up getting funded. So let me give you an example of one of them. Defending Democracy is one of these groups. Sounds innocuous on the face of it. Who doesn't want to defend democracy? But the group is a never Trump out there, in part run by Trump-hating Bill Kristol. So how does an openly political group get these funds? Simple. USAID gives the grant to the Rockefeller Philanthropy Advisors, and they transfer the money to Defending Democracy. This is the screen they try to put up to keep the American public from knowing how the money is spent. And as I said, the Rockefeller Philanthropy got the funds, and that's how all they had to be reported. And many of these NGOs that get grants then immediately start lobbying Congress to increase USAID's budget. Yeah, they're using taxpayer dollars given to them by a government agency to lobby Congress to give the agency more money so the agency can give them more money. Now the Trump administration has trained its focus on the Department of Health and Human Services. If you believe that what we're hearing, they will direct the department to reduce the size of employees by many thousands. I applaud this effort because in my 42 years of experience in Washington, D.C., I know you could cut the budget of just about every department and agency by somewhere around 10%, and the only people that would notice it are the people that are terminated. When my brother was chief of staff at HHS, he remembered being in a meeting where a GS-16 career employee looked at him and said, hey, I was here before you got here, I'll be here when you leave, so I don't care what you think. And that's the attitude of many federal bureaucrats. Then we have Trump's plan to offer a buyout to federal workers. At this time, about 60,000 federal workers have applied for the buyout. Now, the court's already put a hold on it, but there are some guidelines as to what you're seeing is set. Those workers are nearing retirement and see the buyout as a bonus and are jumping on it. This is something the private sector does all the time in an effort to reduce their workforce. It's a form of attrition, and they don't replace the workers who took the buyout. But apparently cutting the federal workforce is, according to Democrats at Capitol Hill, something that should never happen. The second shoe that falls on this issue is that Trump is mandating that federal workers return to the office. What a novel idea. Unless there's some compelling reason for a worker to continue working remotely, they should be in the office. Of course, federal workers by the thousands have gotten used to working from home. It eliminates the need to spend time commuting. It alleviates the need to get dressed for work. Knowing many federal workers in Washington, I have had the chance to talk to some of them. Since they realize I'm retired, they think they can just be honest about how they like the system. As a couple of them have said, we do a couple of conference calls during the day. Some of them are video calls, some are just voice calls. I play on my computer a little bit, but I'm free to do other things during the day as well. That downtime that I used to have at the office is now free time at home. The response from the administration has been right on point. They will insist on excellence at every level. The memo goes on to say, quote, employees will be subjected to enhanced standards of suitability and conduct as we move forward, end quote. That sounds like a directive come from management in any private sector business. Trump's trying to take a business approach, and Democrats and government employees don't like that. This has been To My Liberal Friends. Thanks for listening.